Hey everyone, I'm She-Roze from the She-Roze Collective, and we are back for another episode of Power Talks, which is a collaboration we've been doing for about 2 years now with Power Street Theater. So today I'm really excited to be able to introduce Erika Tai. Now I know that next to her name it says actor, but I kind of have a passion for all of these multi-hyphenate creative. So she's actually yet another one of those. So, yes, she is an actor. She is also a director. She is also a dancer, a choreographer, a singer, a writer, a producer. And if that's not enough, she's also a DJ. So, Erica, again, super baddie, such a fan. So, thanks again for being here with us today. And if you don't mind, I think we really like to have these conversations to just hear about your journey and what's kind of led you to where you are in your life right now. Like life is always this evolutionary experience, right? So yeah, just let us share a little bit with us about your journey and who you are right now, and maybe what are some of the things that have really like defined Erica Tai, the multi hyphenate creative.
Wow, where do I begin? Well, where I am today is a really interesting place. As we were just kind of shooting earlier, um, I feel like as an artist, uh, you know, I am the sum of my experiences, and especially in the last couple of years, there have been a lot of personal things that have just been really big life events and changes for me. And I feel that the duty of an artist is to basically be a channel for the experiences in a way and a vessel that people can connect to and relate to, um, and respond to. And as a multi hyphenate, I bounce around between different ways of expression, and there are so many different ways to transcend language or transcend, with music, with dance, with uh, visual display, with patterns of words, maybe not necessarily, even through discussion with friends. And I feel that because of the experiences I've had, particularly in the last couple of years, all of those things infuse where I am right now and how I move forward with what I decide to do. And also that's the interesting thing about being a multi hyphenate is I get to decide, which is what am I feeling in the moment? What can I choose that's going to best express
Mm.
what I feel needs to be expressed. And it was really interesting because I think I was talking to my therapist not too long ago just about how I felt responsible, in
Mm.
particular as a woman of color, how I wanted to show up for other women of color
Mm.
and how I didn't feel as though I was doing enough. And she said, just by you living authentically and doing what you do and pursuing the things that you do and being the artistic expression, however that looks like for you, that in and of itself is inspiration for other people. And I never really thought about it in that way. And ever since she told me that, I really saw myself differently and figured, especially a woman after 40. I
Mm.
think when I turned 40, that was a really big turning point for me, and I feel like I see that in a lot of my peers, a lot of other, women, colleagues that, that feel that way, that feel that once they've hit this kind of milestone, they really hit their stride and
Mm.
really know who they are as a person, as an artist, and don't really care about what society says or what their preconceived notions were or whatever was holding them back before. And I definitely feel that. Uh, and so I feel less of that imposter syndrome. I
Mhm.
feel like at this point, it's like I've done so many things for so long that I shouldn't have this insecurity about a lot of those things anymore because I'm doing it.
Mm.
I have all these different avenues and I have opportunities in all these different areas. And even though it may not look like what I initially thought they looked like because of preconceived notions, that doesn't make me less successful. That doesn't make me, not on the right journey, or because I'm not here where I thought I was going to be, because it's all a journey, it's all life, and life imitates art, art imitates life, and it's just a flow. And
Girl,
that's just where
you
I
are
am.
dropping the gems today. Absolutely. I'm like sitting here like beat myself about it, like, yeah. But definitely so spot on with everything that you said. That that idea of, yeah, like having proven yourself to yourself at this stage in the game. And not to say that I think like one of the most wonderful things is to know that um hey, there's still tracks to be made, right? Like it's funny because I think that, we especially it seems like as women, like we kind of feel like there's a drop off point, or at least I don't know if it's just a generational thing, right? Where we were raised to think that if you didn't do certain things by a certain age and if it didn't look a certain way, then that was it. That was the end, right?
Right.
And I think that we're also at a point where um, we're recognizing and redefining what success means. I think that we're recognizing that success is a feeling more than a projection,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
and I think that like when you kind of get to that point that you've it's like you've sampled it, you've tasted it, right? Like you know what you're looking for now, right? Versus this idea that you're chasing instead. And
Hmm.
it definitely is interesting to see the way that life serves up the things that we've wanted to create or do. Um, and it's enjoying it for the way that it shows up. And sometimes like the ways that they show up is, vastly different, but also in their own way, kind of like even beyond what we could have imagined, right? Like it's like the textures of the reality of it are so I think like so much more intriguing because we couldn't even have anticipated the outcome.
I think also just in particular in LA and Los Angeles, I think there's a certain, when you tell people you're an actor, oh, what have I seen you in, is always the question. And I think there are a lot of people that come to LA and, you know, they give themselves a timeline,
Mm,
or they say, okay, I was big in a small town. I'm going to come to LA. I'm going to make it big in Hollywood. And, and they don't, because they didn't get a big series, or they didn't get this film, or they didn't get this music video, or they didn't get, whatever people see as success in mainstream media. And that was something felt I've felt has really been important to me, is that I've kind of carved out my own niche place, and
mm,
I have continued to create those opportunities. And I think it's I've been very intentional
mm,
and open to different kinds of opportunities. Again, like we were just saying, that don't look like what you necessarily thought it would be, but gives you an opportunity in a new and different way that you never thought about before, which is a beautiful thing. And
mm.
I've also found community in that. I've found chosen family through that. And I think that goes back to being authentic with yourself and with your art, is you find your people
Mm.
instead of what you're saying, chasing whatever the thing
You're
is.
so right that the people that you end up building the relationships with along the way is really where like the sweet spot is in all
Yeah.
of it, right? And again, like that's what they don't tell you about, right?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
kind of think about it. Actually, there's another dancer. She goes by B Girl Mel. Similarly, she was from San Diego but moved out to LA to pursue, the dance career. And, she got represented early on by like some big agency, and she did all the things. But, she was also talking about how what she wished she had done differently is that she had never actually, known or thought to connect and create community, that, like going to auditions
Mm.
and feeling like, hey, you're up against all these other dancers, and this, sense of competitiveness, all, kind of creates like a bit of a wall. And, all the different ways that, the whole process of going to auditions can really like, you know what I mean? Like, so if you
Oh,
can
I know. I know.
away at your heart, right? It could chip away your mental wellness, your sense of identity, your sense of, self-worth, etc. But if you can kind of flip the script on that and be like, oh, I'm going to this, um, you know, finding the fun in the moment of it, and part of that being like, hey, who's there? Can I enjoy this in some other way? Can I build from this some other way? So speaking of which, can you tell us a little bit about some of the productions that you've done, and maybe, the ones that maybe are special to you and have stood out for some particular reason?
Um, it's funny because when I first thought about this, my initial, like the first performance that I remember ever doing,
Mhm.
I was I was 5. I was in kindergarten and I did a talent show, and my eldest late sister, she was a fashion designer and she designed my outfit. My other older sister, she played piano and was in dance and drill team or dance team. And so she played the music, recorded it, recorded on a cassette tape to be played because that was the era, and choreographed dance to uh, Give My Regards to Broadway, I think was what it was.
Mhm.
And I still remember distinctly that that performance just as a first time being on stage and what that felt like. Uh, and it was otherworldly. Um, and then fast forward to, I think, the first time I directed a play.
Mm.
And I remember reading this play when I was studying theater in college, and it was a German expressionist. Heiner Mueller was the name of the play is the name of the playwright, and he broke off from Brechtian theater. So if you're a theater person, Brecht is like a huge name in modern theater, and he told kind of morality stories that had a specific told you how to interpret whatever the story was. And Heiner Mueller, he kind of went in a different direction in terms of leaving endings ambiguous,
Mm.
and it was also very avant-garde. He had directed this 8-page piece that he wrote, and it was a 7-hour performance or something the
Wow.
first time he did it. Yeah, it was just a very intense, very, just German. And it was a play written in the 70s that was commentary about post-socialist Europe and how that system failed Europe. And when I read the play when I was 19, and then I graduated from college and I became a part of this small black box theater company called Rude Gorilla. And it was a small theater company in Santa Ana. And it was kind of like grad school for me in terms of, I spent about 5.5 years with that theater company doing everything from getting on a ladder and hanging lights, lighting design, sound design, stage managing, directing, choreographing, all of those things. And I had the opportunity to direct this play that I had fallen in love with when I read it. And it was also during the time of um, Bush was the president, and I think we had just invaded Iraq.
Mm.
And so I I created that piece to reflect, instead of the commentary on post-socialist Europe, a commentary on what was happening during that time. And Hamlet Machine was the name of the play. And originally that play, what Mueller did was he took Hamlet and used that as an example of man, and playing with the fourth wall in and out. And so for me, I created the interpretation of man being the seed of his own destruction.
Mm.
And as a first directorial experience, it was, and I also, choreographed it, and it was just, there was a lot of nudity. It was very controversial.
Hmm.
And to this day, a lot of people who were a part of that or saw that, they still talk about it, which is kind of cool. It's like,
That's awesome.
but it was very
That's like the
impactful. But it was
greatest.
also a net.
That's like the greatest experience, right? Like, the longevity of the impact of a piece that you've brought to life in some way.
But also using it as a way to, again, using art to express how I was feeling about what was going on at that time.
Mm, absolutely.
And also using a lot of different elements. Being a multi hyphenate, I actually was working for a post production company uh, that let me use some of the equipment because there was a media aspect to it where I actually also edited all of this footage of war.
Mm,
Um, and there were supposed to be three television screens, and so with the equipment that I had from my job, I was able to daisy chain the three televisions using a particular piece of equipment so that the three television screens wouldn't lose quality. And so I used a lot of different
mhm,
skills to put that together. And it all, came together. I had a DJ friend who created original music for
mhm.
it. So it was just a really something that I was really, really proud of. And um, that actually ended up, that idea then turned into another idea that uh, ended up being my first short film with the
Mm.
same kind of concept. So
All right. Well, I think that
yeah.
we're definitely gonna have to pull some of these out of the vault and have a Erika Tai screening event. Just these all sound so, so, so exquisite. I want to go back a little bit to what you said earlier about how you feel like over the years you've kind of established your niche, right?
Mm.
So, how would you describe that niche specifically? And, how can you know, put a sister on?
Huh. So I'm currently a part of a band, and I'm part of a burlesque group.
Mhm.
And the burlesque group I'm with, they're the Dollface Dames.
Mhm.
The director of that group is Lola Boutte, and I'm also a choreographer for that group, and I sing for them.
Mhm.
And then I'm part of a band that was previously named Loungeorama. We're still trying to figure out what the name is. Um, and, I was producing for a while. I was producing my own burlesque show and kind of started going into more experimental performance theater, which is something I've always wanted to explore more. And that was right before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, that kind of took a back seat. But then that prompted a short film that I actually ended up winning an award for, which was also in this avant-garde
What's
space
the name of
as
the film?
well.
I need you to name drop right now. What's the name of that award-winning film?
It um, it is, the name of the song is, oh, why am I n yeah, of course, I'm on the spot, and I can't think of it at the moment. Wow, this is embarrassing.
Hey, edit. Jose, edit that.
Thank you. Uh, oh my gosh, this is really Daylight, that's what it was, Daylight. And and so daylight. So everything during the pandemic, everything went into virtual,
Mhm.
and there was a Halloween themed virtual show with the Dollface Dames, and I had actually that again. It's interesting how one area melds into another and creates ideas for something else, and so the experimental performance art stuff I was
Mhm.
just starting to do gave birth to another idea for this burlesque inspired video that
Mhm.
I directed, filmed, and acted in during lockdown. And it was through another burlesque sister who said, "Hey, there's a Hollywood burlesque festival that happens every single year, but it went virtual that year, so it became a film festival in 2021." And my friend said, "Hey, you really should submit this project to this film festival," which I did, and ended up winning best avant-garde film in that particular festival. So that was really cool.
Because I actually remember meeting you specifically at, a workshop that, this organization that existed back at the time, which was called, Fly Butterfly, that they were hosting. Yeah, and I just remember us going through all of the strains of trying to connect with our voices at that time, and it was a really powerful workshop.
Mhm.
It was, I have to tell you, I think it made such a huge difference, to be perfectly honest. I just think about, like, where we were in that moment and how closed up so many of us were. Actually, I wanna say all of us really
Mhm.
were in that particular session, just all the choking up just to try to get to the thing, so I'm excited to hear some of the music that you're working on now, and see where you're at, and that way we can exchange notes on how far the journey has come. I actually wanna go back and, uh, have us revisit that workshop, again, I think that that'll be like a fascinating, like, part 2 for us to check out. So, of all of the creative, um disciplines that you express yourself in, would you say that one is more dominant? Like, you've kind of talked about your journey and how depending on where you were at in, in that particular moment, you kind of the way that you wanted to express the things that you were feeling or observing or wanted to comment on in some kind of a way, that kind of started to like steer down a certain pathway. But do you feel like one of your art forms is more intuitive or more dominant than the others? And is there one that you think challenges you more or that, teaches you the most in some way, shape, or form?
I feel as though dance has always been the most intuitive
Mm,
for me. And and it took me a really long time to call myself a dancer
mm,
because again, going back to that preconceived notion of what success looks like or, because I'm not a commercially successful dancer, or because I didn't study for as long as, someone else who, did the tap, ballet, jazz combo when they were 3 or 5 years old and did it for their whole life. My path was different. I started late at age 12 or whatever that is. And after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of dancing and still not being able to call myself a dancer. And at some point, I did eventually uh, empower myself by saying, "I don't know why I haven't been saying this about myself."
mm.
That's I've always been that way. I've always just I've always moved. I've always been able to pick up choreography. I've always been a vessel for music and expression. And so I feel that that was probably the most intuitive for me. Uh, as far as did you ask about being powerful too?
Uh,
Um,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that shortly.
oh,
But
okay. Okay. Um,
um, what my
I'm jumping the
question
gun.
was, my question that was aligned with that one was, because you were just talking about the one that felt the most intuitive, right?
Right. Hmm.
But is there one that you find to be the most challenging for you, or another way to think about that? I like to think that kind of like what we were talking about earlier, right? Like all of the practice of art in a way is very often the path of self-learning, right? And self,
Mm-hmm.
right? So is there one that either challenges you in a specific way that you want to share, or is there one that you maybe find to be like the greatest teacher for you? That the act of it teaches you a lot about yourself and where you're at in that particular moment.
Yeah, I think music definitely, singing for me. Um, and that's the other thing too is I've always sang. I've sang since I was a kid. I was in choir for several years, and I studied music briefly, but I did study it. I read music. I played piano, I played violin, I played guitar. Uh, and it's funny because I sing with a cover band.
Mhm.
And before I sang with a cover band, I kind of talked negatively about cover bands, like, "Oh, they're just playing other people's music and blah, blah, blah," until I joined this particular band, and I also found out, I guess, Van Halen started as a cover band, so
Oh, okay, check that out.
there's that, yeah. Um, but the band that I sing with, every single person plays multiple instruments. They've studied music forever. They're always working as musicians. And so when I was asked to join this group, I was very, very intimidated.
Mm,
And they interpret music in a way that's a lot deeper than me.
mm,
And so I had a lot of insecurities around that. And the band leader, who is a very dear friend of mine, who had asked me to join the group, I have all these, mental gymnastics about it, but also it's such a talented group of musicians that I had to tell myself there's a reason why he asked you to join.
mm,
If I sucked, I wouldn't have been asked to be a part of this phenomenal group. And so, but I feel like I have to rise to the occasion much more.
mm,
And at the same time, uh, I've been deemed the torch singer of the group. There's, there are multiple singers in this band as well, and one of them is she teaches music, she plays piano, she has very musical theater. She's very trained, so she's
mm,
very clean in her singing. And one of the other singers, she's an opera singer and is a powerhouse. And so that's the other thing about the authenticity of who you are and what your voice is. Being a torch singer, I come with a little more gruff, a little not a little rough around the edges, and that's a good thing too. That's what I bring to the table, and I have had to learn to just really own that,
mm,
and also that the band is good enough to follow me, that I don't need to be tentative when there's music that we've done a lot. I've performed with them for several years now, and there are certain songs that we've done over and over, and I have had to learn to just be a leader, because when you're singing a song with a band behind you, they're behind you, and you have to trust that they're going to be there for you, and you have to just be clear with your direction. I'm a director and I'm a choreographer, so I know how to give direction and to say this is what I want. And as a singer, had to learn how to do that, and that's something that I'm empowering myself more with, that's been a challenge, but that I'm learning to be more comfortable with and confident with.
Interesting. I'll tell you personally, I actually find singing other people's songs way harder than and I think it has to do with the fact that, like, it is almost impossible to not naturally try to sing that song the way that it was originally written and
Mhm.
sung by the person who made it famous, right?
Right, right.
You know, and kind of to your point, and actually, like, some of my favorite, some songs, I love the remixes more than the original because sometimes, like, the remix is so much different, like, the vocal delivery is so much different and brings out an entirely different emotion for the song, so I think that, when doing a cover, and I generally don't do them, I've only done one cover my entire life, which is, a song that my husband actually wrote, but I think that the magic
Which is
in it
beautiful. I loved it.
we gotta do a thing with that. I still wanna, well, we'll talk about that offline. But yeah, I think that making that piece your own is, um, really the goal, right? And again, the challenge of it, right? So I think it can be like a great learning, but I think that it's a lot of that comes down to, like you were saying earlier, is just getting really comfortable in your own voice and, all the textures that that brings and your story that comes through that voice in that particular moment, so yeah, definitely let me know next time you guys are out, and yeah, definitely if it's an incredible band of incredible talent and they've come to you to say, hey, we want you in it, then that also, like, hopefully gives you some level of that's like the greatest compliment, right? I think that
Mhm.
I think it's so important that as artists we continue to try to work with people that challenge us in some way to stretch, to grow. Um, I think developing that whole trust component of that relationship is a big part of it, but there's something to gain out of it. And then also kind of vice versa is recognizing when you're going to be that person for someone else, where you're the one creating that opportunity and also providing that safety net, so to speak, for them to kind of find their sea legs in their own expression too. So absolutely, absolutely, I love these conversations because so much good stuff comes out. So yeah, now we're going to get to that point of the question that you were clearly so eager to answer. So what makes you feel the most powerful?
That's so funny because I think that you were literally just answering that for me in what you were just saying. And also going back to what I was saying about what my therapist said about being authentic and just doing what I do and that being inspirational for other people. Um, some of the most rewarding things I've done with my art is I was teaching a burlesque class, a burlesque dance class, and I realized that as I was teaching it, it evolved into something that was more about empowerment than just about dance and choreography. You know, most standard dance classes, you do a warm up, you learn choreography, and you dance it, and it's which is also in and of itself wonderful and fun. But I was finding myself, and I think it was also in congruence with where my life path has been over the last few years and that evolution, again, art imitating life, uh, kind of inspiring my students to taking this physical sensuality and turning it into empowerment and applying it in their everyday lives and taking up space. And I think that was also part of something I learned from that workshop that we did
Mm,
too. And seeing my students come out of their shell
mm,
in a dance class was so, so, so rewarding for me. And that's that to me is powerful, being able to give someone that gift to allow them to let go, for someone to say yes, and to be that vessel for someone. And it's the same thing with performing. I think I feel powerful when I leave everything on the stage. When
mm,
I kind of if I'm really, really into my performance and into a concept and into how I want to express myself, and I go to this weird, almost shamanistic place where I am no longer myself and I just become something outside of myself in
Mm,
the lights and in the people and and when the performance comes to a close and kind of just feeling that connection with the audience and their reaction and their response, that is also extremely powerful for me as well, and the conversations that are had. Something that was really, really cool about that play that I directed,
mhm,
that I mentioned, is that there was a couple, they were friends of mine that came to the show, and they apparently had a fight before they saw the play, and they weren't speaking to each other, and they said that the play was so thought-provoking that they couldn't help but talk to each other about the play, and that kind of broke the ice from whatever the fight was about before the play, and I thought that that was really, really cool, and, for that to be a bridge, uh, I think it's just, the coming together of people, the 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 discussion of ideas, the the camaraderie, the collaboration. Collaboration is such a huge part of what I love about creating, uh, because we can't really do it alone. Even if you're doing something alone, you're doing something with the influence of
mm,
every person that you've come into contact with and how that has made an impression on who you are as a person, as an artist as well. And but also having a vision and having a group of people come together and making that vision happen, it's so powerful, especially in a time where there's so much destruction
mm,
and that we need that kind of work. We need people to come together more so than ever.
mm,
And to create something beautiful or even to create something ugly or something that is not destructive but makes people talk,
mm,
makes people reach across the table, makes people feel something, anything. We're so many people are just stuck staring at their screens
mm,
and scrolling and feeling nothing because they're trying to fill a void that you can't fill by just, you know, I think live performance is very important there. I mean, but there's also tons of really great there's great content too if you look in the right places. And that's the kind of work that I want to do, the thought provoking, the evoking of emotions, inviting people to be a part of it, whether as a spectator or to help me co-create. Those all give me the warm fuzzies.
Again, I'm sitting here going like, "Ugh, keep dropping the gems, my friend." By the way, I love that your band refers to you as, like, the torch singer because, like, literally as you're speaking, I just keep picturing you as this torch, like, you know, sparking, like, that flame inside people's hearts, right? Like, apparently, like, healing marriages along the way, right? Like, whoever would have thought that? But I absolutely love it, but, I don't know, I feel like you might need to do something creatively around just this whole concept of the torch because it seems very uh, connected to specifically what you were just like talking about, right? So, like all the things that it conjures up for you, but also kind of like what your identity is as an artist, right? You are this this torch that is constantly just like lighting the flames in others. And I absolutely love that. So speaking of which, I know that you mentioned earlier that you're kind of on a bit of a pause, right? Which is, you know, super healthy and for me, I think that like we talked about earlier, right? Like sometimes we have to stop running to be able to listen to what's trying to come through, right? Like that you need that stillness for something to be birthed through you, right? So, but that being said, um, is there is there anything, coming up, that you want to maybe share that folks can check out? Or like I said, it sounds like you have such a vault of incredible works that you've done in the past. Is there any way that people can like tap in to check that out or connect with you in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can share links to some of the projects I've done. I actually, the last I had co-written a short film that I acted in that was in the festival circuit last year called Eat the Pasta. I can share a link with you for that, as well as the other projects, the online projects videos that I've done. The Dollface Dames, I will be rejoining them probably during the summer. I'm thinking July, August is when I'll be back on stage with them, I imagine. And then the band formerly known as Loungeorama, I think the Instagram handle is uh, TBFL, or whatever the acronym is for the band formerly known as Loungeorama. And then of course, my Instagram handle, which is underscore Erika underscore Tai. And yeah, I even though I am in a little bit of a pause, I imagine I've been interested in wanting to produce again. If not a live event, then there's a script, there's a feature um, film script that I started writing a long time ago. That's about, I don't know, 45 pages in, that I
Mm.
need to finish. And that's a whole other behemoth that I need to just hunker down and finish. And I mean, there's always something cooking beneath the surface, and usually I'll, when I'm ready to birth the next project, I do the social media blast about that. So
Mhm. Well, I wouldn't be
stay
surprised
tuned.
if there is, an EP or full-length album in your future as you continue to, like, take this time to explore your voice. Holler when you're ready. Um,
Mm,
and again, I would always, of course, love to see a She-Roze and Erika collabo at some point. So,
yeah,
last and final question for you. What are you hoping that your legacy will be?
that's a very loaded question.
Loaded questions for the record. I hear that never
Uh,
all loaded.
um, I as I mentioned before, in terms of when I feel powerful and what I would like to achieve with my work, is just that I have somehow created a positive impact on someone. It doesn't have to be this big commercial success. I've again reinterpreted what success looks like to me, and it doesn't have to be, those little ripple effects. Ripples turn into big effects, right? How we exchange with another individual will impact the next individual that we come into contact with, and so on and so forth. And so I think that if I can just continue doing that, if I have one student that thanks me for allowing them to open up in some way and they carry that with them in their life, awesome. If I have created magic on stage with someone I've collaborated with, and we take that with our hearts and, you know, move to the next moment in our life with that in our heart. If someone thinks about something in a different way because they've seen me do some weird experimental performance that they never really thought that they would see something like that, that's something too. It's I think those are the things that I feel are important to me now,
Mhm.
and I feel that I've done that in certain ways, and that feels good to me, and I just want to keep doing that.
I love it. Well, again, Erica, such an inspiration. I am so excited to see what is yet to come, um, and to know that it's only going to continue to become more thought provoking, more inspiring. More liberating, I'd like to think as well for you as well as for all of us. Thank you for representing with so much authenticity and grace and realness. And Yeah, like let's keep the conversations going offline. So again, thank you so much for being with us here today. And folks, have a good one. Peace.